Hi there, and welcome to the business edition of PM Express with me, Philip Nanfuri. In the last 2 days, the produce buying company, as it was formerly called and now called PBC, had its listing status suspended on the Ghana Stock Exchange. We want to delve into that and more importantly, or most importantly, look at the broader corporate structure. What causes companies to fail? Is it management? Is it the sector in which they operate in? Or is it as a result of the macro economy? PBC's job or PBC's operations mainly deal with the cocoa sector. So they are purchasing cocoa beans and then selling it off. How has that gone bad? We know for a couple of years now, cocoa prices have been tumbling on the international markets. Is that enough to warrant a problem in PBC's financials, such that the workers are up in arms about how PBC is being run? We want to look at that. So we'll start off with PBC, then we'll delve into the broader corporate structure in Ghana. But first of all, I want you to look at what the Ghana Stock Exchange, that's the regulator of all listed companies, their operations fall under the Securities and Exchange Commission, that's the SEC. I want you to look at what exactly the Ghana Stock Exchange notice said on PBC and what we can learn from that. So here's an infographic we put together for you. Take a look at this. Now, after you've seen that, here is the acting managing director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Ekwa Afechi, justifying why they had to suspend PBC's listing status. He had an interaction with my colleague George Rafi. Let's take a look at that.
Once you get listed, you must abide by all the rules that the market will impose on you. And what are these rules about? Basically, disclosure of information, making the company more transparent and more accountable to their shareholders. So it's very important that as a public company that gets listed, you should normally be giving out information about the company to the public, material information that is likely to affect the share price, so that shareholders can make or take informed decisions concerning their investments. After all, people invest and expect returns, so they need to know what's happening to these companies. And therefore, once you take the step to list, once you take the step to go become a public company, you should know that you must be more transparent and be accountable to your shareholders. We cannot bend on that. What it also means is that there are other benefits. You have access to long-term capital. You have investors getting more attracted to companies that are listed and companies that are regulated.
I mean, for you as a manager of this market, yes, I understand you want to go according to your law and all those things, but for you, on the other side of you, maybe the human side of you, aren't you worried about the wrong signals this may send, even though you're working with your regulations and your law?
I don't think suspension on listing is sending wrong signals to investors out there, especially. To me, it's rather sending the right signals that we're making sure that rules are enforced. You all recall what happened in the past, where people accused the market of not enforcing rules. So we need to enforce the rules. At the same time, point out the real benefits that companies can gain when they get onto the market. The benefits are way reporting, all these financials, etc. And even the report on the financials and becoming transparent can help you in so many ways. Assessing capital, you're more creditworthy, etc.
What would be the implication on the, and again, I asked you a question about the implication on the company itself by this action. Sorry if I just, some clarity on that one.
For the company itself, like I said, the shares will not be trading until the rectifying all the breaches. Two, they cannot do corporate actions through the market. For the company itself, what they have to do is to put their act together and make sure that the audited accounts can be reported to the investing public. It doesn't mean that you should be making profit all the time. If you make losses this year, you can still recover. But it's simply important that that information is thrown out there so that investors can price the shares properly.
What about for the investors of these shares as well? What will be the impact of this action on them as well?
To the investor, they're getting to know that the exchange stands by them. The exchange will make sure that companies listed provide the information they need to take their decisions all the time, and therefore confidence will be built in the market.
Right, welcome back. So we've heard from the regulator of the listed companies in Ghana, the Ghana Stock Exchange, Ekwafeji, with my colleague George Weafe. We've looked at also exactly what they said in their notice as to why PBC's listing status had to be suspended. Now I want to find out what it means to have a listed company's status suspended. We'll move on to look at the financials of PBC and their operations and what we can learn from it and whether we can see possible failures in those financials. Then we'll look at the broader discussion of whether it's indeed a problem of management, whether it's a problem of the cocoa sector they're working in, or the agricultural sector, and whether or not the economy has anything to do with the performance. And to help me walk through all this is Charles Mensah. He's a financial consultant, and he's the CEO of Trust Consult Limited, chartered management accountants and consultants. So he's well versed in the financial sector and anything got to do with numbers and finance. So he's going to help us understand all these issues I've put before you. And I want to say a big thank you to Charles for joining us. Charles, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Philip.
Okay. So I want to start off with the listing status issue and why it's important for the stock exchange to suspend a company that is put on. I'm sure PBC went to the stock exchange to raise money.
Yes.
Yes. How come now GSE is saying that we need to suspend their status on the stock exchange?
Thank you very much for having me. First and foremost, and a good evening to your cherished viewers. Ghana Stock Exchange would definitely suspend a company once the rules of the game have been abused or have been missed. Okay. As a listed company, you ought to publish your accounts on a regular basis as and when it's due. You ought to be giving them quarterly reports. You ought to be giving them biannual reports. So if you look at the reasons that have been adduced by Ghana stock market, they definitely were not doing what is right. Don't forget that not too long ago, we've had some of the banks who were not publishing accounts, who were on the stock market, and the Ghana stock market didn't do anything about it. So they are being proactive.
Okay.
Once they missed the boat, that they didn't publish their accounts, because the published accounts is the only way that the shareholders will get to know the performance of the business, so they can take a decision whether to continue to have their shares in the business or to sell their shares in the business. So it's the only way. You won't have any other way, because that's why it's the market. And the market breaks the numbers, and the numbers influences decisions. So once you miss it, then you are worrying institutional investors, they are worrying individual investors that they themselves were looking up to the information to see whether even a dividend will be paid. So it is in the right direction, and I'm hoping that it will continue like that. But be as it may, if you think it cannot meet a certain deadlines, it serves on the management and board of the company, like the PBC, to write for an extension of the time. Because if they're supposed to be listed on the market, sorry, if they're supposed to publish their accounts by a certain date and they cannot meet it, all they have to do is write a letter to state the reasons, adduce the reasons. Maybe we have a problem to do with our software, maybe we have a problem to do with the valuation of our stocks, and that's why we didn't meet the deadline. It's an extension period. But once you didn't do that, the big stake will be raised by the Ghana stock market, and I believe that's what they've done.
Okay, I have 3 things here I want to bring out. The first one, in the notice from the GSC to all of us, it says they missed out on some note payments. I assume PBC took some money from the public.
Rightly so.
And now they are missing payments, is that right?
Rightly so, yes.
Typically, that will mean that they are defaulting on payments they're supposed to make to, let's say, bond holders or holders of these funds.
Correct.
Okay, so that first one cleared. Second one, in your submissions, I deduce an issue of corporate governance. And you mentioned that it's just a matter of communication from board and management.
Yep.
Now, I was going through PBC's shareholding structure, and I realized that they're a mix of institutional and retail investors. But the bulk of the institutional investors are the Ministry of Finance and then Social Security and National Insurance.
You mean Government of Ghana through
the
Ministry of Finance? Okay.
And then Social Security and National Insurance Trust. Now, corporate governance institute will argue that institutional investors have the might to push for changes in the company.
Correct.
Do you see anything wrong with this, or it's too early to even draw a parallel between the corporate governance structure of PBC and what's happening? What's your overview of that?
I think going through the accounts, the financials, you rightly see that the company is cash strapped. They've borrowed from short term, medium term to long term. And therefore, whatever is earned as profit, apart from doing the direct operational expenses, has to go through the servicing of the debt. So if you look even through their financials, you will notice that there's a gross profit and there's a growth in the gross profit. It is below the gross profit level that is a huge increase, largely from the expenses themselves of the company, and also the expenses to do with servicing of the finance costs. And we're talking huge sums of money here. And once you have that, the shareholders, coming back to the corporate governance, the shareholders themselves and the directors ought to have a strategic section to look at what is it that we have to do to move away from working to service the debt. Because working to service the debt, there will be a time that you can't even service the debt because the cash will not be good enough to even pay your direct expenses, let alone pay the debt holders. Now, if you're not paying the debt holders, that means you are missing it. More especially if such debt were listed on the stock market and you can't meet it. You create more problem for the company and for the market. Because bond markets, people are supposed to honor their debt as and when they fall due. Where they cannot meet it, they have to probably raise additional money again, or additional bond again to service the debt. But when you go through their numbers, I think they over-leveraged. Short, medium, and long term.
And over-leverage means they borrowed a lot.
Too much. They borrowed to do. But when you look at it critically, I think along the line, either they tried to diversify instead of staying in the cocoa business, so they tried to go to other areas. So I noticed that they went into share barter activity, and they went into hospitality industry, i.e. they have a golden beam company.
Yeah.
And they have the share barter limited company, which is wholly owned by the PBC. Now, when you take them one after the other, if you look at the hospitality, that is the Golden Beam Hotel, in itself they are making loss. So even the investment into a new subsidiary to bring in additional money, they're making loss. Because there's a gross loss and then there's some operational expenses that increases the net loss to the company. The share barter thing, I'm not sure had taken off fully or how it should be. And therefore, that's also a loss-making exercise. And when you look at the funding of the share barter and other things, it's a long-term loan. And one may ask, why would you fund a new business, a new activity with debt instead of equity. So the management and the directors and the shareholders ought to take a backstage, analyze it, and see if the business is solid. Why don't you fund it with equity? Because equity would earn dividend, and then will also increase your capital base. But debt, no. And that's why there's a bit of problem across the board. So they also have problem from the haulage sector. But they have, I think they have haulage where they cut the cocoa from the hinterlands to the right place. That way they have to sell it. Who can do it better? Should it be themselves doing the haulage, or should they outsource that? Now, if private sectors are already in this buying business and they are not making huge losses that you are making, there's something got to give. So even the haulage business itself, they have to be able to look at it critically and take a decision that we want to outsource it. So all this is culminated into it and then forced the Ghana stock market to even delist them or to suspend them in the meantime, hoping that they can put their house in order.
Okay, so here is an infographic of the shareholders of PBC. As you can see, it's a mix of Government of Ghana through the Ministry of Finance, the SSNIT, that's the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, the biggest pension fund manager in the country, and we have a mix of other investors in there. So I want you to just chew on that. And after that, have a look at the 2016-2017 annual report of PBC, and it's up there for you to see some key statistics. Charles was mentioning gross profit. He was mentioning a number of things. And we have here the 2016-2017 financials of PBC. And it's true, exactly what Charles has said. They are doing well with gross profit. However, their expenses are increasing. And if you even look at from 2016 to 2017, their general and administrative expenses, what it takes to run the business, every day, what's happening in there, it's going up. So you realize that if you come down also, you see what Charles mentioned about the debt, the loans they've gone for. If you look into the notes of the annual report, you see exactly how they've categorized it. But on the surface of it, this is just the statement of comprehensive income. It's just a snapshot of what transpired between the year 2016 to 2017. And you realize that that has dropped marginally, but still high. And it just shows to you and lends credence to what Charles was saying, that the loans PBC has gone for is eating into their cash flow. So essentially, most of their funds are being used to service their debts. And it sounds familiar because we have a national problem of that nature, where most of our revenues go into servicing our debt as a country and paying salaries and wages, and then what is left cannot be used for anything, and we have to go and borrow for infrastructure financing, etc. So you realize that these problems happen in corporates and happen in the big world. Now, let's listen to the PBC Professional and Managerial Staff Union Chairman. His name, Prince Xavier Gankwe. He spoke to our colleague Gifty Ando Apia on the Pulse a couple of days ago, and he shared their main problems with the company and how the staff union thinks they can come out of this quagmire. Let's take a look at that.
We need a bailout. We need a letter of comfort from the government. And we are also asking the government to take out the current management and the board.
Okay.
And replace them with people that can really help turn the fortunes of this company around.
Okay, so these are the things you need: a bailout, a change of management,
And a letter of change of management and the board.
change of management and board,
On board.
and then a letter of comfort.
Yeah.
What is a letter of comfort, sir?
The letter of comfort is a sort of guarantee from the state. You know, when COCOBOG gets the seed fund, after working on the syndicated facilities, what the license buying companies ought to do, you need to provide bank guarantees. That is, you need to go to the commercial banks to give you guarantee, and the amount of money you can access to buy the cocoa from the farmers will depend on the amount of guarantee that you've been able to secure from the farmers. Now, in the case of PBC, because we are currently owing a lot of banks, we will find it very difficult to get banks to guarantee us, to give us the necessary guarantee. So all that we are asking the government to do is to give us a letter of comfort. In this letter, we will not need the bank guarantee. We can go straight to the Cocoa Board with this letter, the amount of money that we need to operate, provided it is available of Cocoa Board. Cocoa Board will give it to us. We will use it to buy the cocoa and deliver to Cocoa Board without any bank guarantee being required.
And you're asking also for a bailout. That essentially means a writing off the debts that the company has accrued over the years that it's operated.
Of course, yes. Not necessarily writing it off, sort of fencing the debt for us. PBC is a very viable company. We have been at Club 100 before, first 2010, 2011, we were also first. Come to 2013 to 2015, we were second. The company is where we are today, just mainly because of the diversification that we embark upon. So all that we are saying is, when these debts that we are in now are fenced for us, we can create a fiscal space, turn around. If we are given a working capital, we can be able to work and turn the fortunes of the company back on track.
Right, so welcome back and thanks for staying with us. So that was my colleague Gifty with one of the PBC staff going through what he feels government must do. And he says management must change. He's asking the government does that. And he also talks about a letter of comfort. He's asking for a number of guarantees so that PBC can access some good financing. And this ties into what Charles said. But let's go to the issue of management and ask Charles if indeed it's easy, even though government is not the only shareholder in there, is it easy for management to change just like that? Charles is going to help us answer this question. So Charles, they're asking for a change in management. The staff members are peeved and they think that it's a result of poor management. You just mentioned that board, shareholders, management should re-strategize and look at how they can get out of things that are costing them, how to find, I'm sure, some good source of financing, reduce their debt levels or their leverage, and then sort themselves out. Do you think that will solve the issue, first one? And two, as a listed company, is it as easy to change management as the staff members are making it sound like?
Thank you very much. I think you just hit the nail right on the head. Because they are listed on the stock market, there are rules and regulations, and you have to go through that. However, the majority shareholders, which is SNIT and Ghana government through Ministry of Finance, can cause some changes themselves because they influence the board members, the nomination of the board. So through the shareholders at AGM, some hands will be raised that we are not happy with the following, and therefore we want certain changes to happen. I read in the audited accounts somewhere that they had commissioned one of the big four companies to do some strategic evaluation of the company. I don't know the outcome and whether they've implemented it or not. But be as it may, yes, changes would come, but it's not going to be easy as the gentleman was saying. Now, if you even do changes to management, you have to look at the whole structure once again. You see, for every company, there are three key things. It is the strategy the company is pursuing, it is the structure the company and the systems they put in place. Now, if you look at the structure, the company is highly leveraged because the expansion was funded by debt. They even have a $10 million loan from Cocoa Board at 8.5% per annum. That was what they used in setting up the share butter limited. Now, it's high time possibly that they have to discuss with Cocoa Board to convert that debt into equity in the business. in the share butter business. So structurally, they can have PBC owing a certain percentage in the share butter and Cocoa Board owing a certain equity. When you do that, you're not going to service the debt because that 8.5% interest dollar into a 10 million loan is now converted into equity. And then we can look the way forward, whether we even need additional money to accelerate the growth of the share butter limited. In the same way, when you look at another subsidiary of theirs, which is the hospitality sector, whether PBC themselves are good at that, or whether they will look for a management company that this is the asset used to be the clubhouse, and they convert it into a hotel, which in itself is solid. But then, do we need PBC themselves to run the hotel, or do we need a management company who you can sign some sort of arrangement with them that this is my assets, I want you to churn out a certain percentage profit every year. If you don't churn out, this is what you lose. Then that can be saved. So that the core of the activity, which is the cocoa buying and selling, will be done and will be done right. So that the diversionary will stop. Because if you go through it, let me give you quickly.
Okay.
They have an overdraft facility, well over 200 million. And they have a short-term loan from Car Merchant Bank, Stancha, Ghana Commercial Bank, Eco Bank, hovering over 300 million. Then they have some loan they took for EDIF, or EDIF these days, as we call them. So when you have all these things dotted around, any city that can be into PBC, these people will be ready to collect their debt. And that can create a problem. I think we should focus on the structure now. The management becomes secondary. Because even if you bring new management tomorrow and we don't touch the structure, there will be a problem. There will be a serious problem. So we need to do a combination. Bring new monies or convert the debt into equity. At the same time you are doing that, then you bring management. If you don't do it, para, and you do one, we'll come back to the same, problem.
So fixing the debt has got to be the paramount solution. It should precede other things.
Correct.
And then, as the good book will say, seek ye first the kingdom and all other things will be added to you. So clean first the debt. And all
but you should do it. You should do it, especially if the existing management were there and they didn't say anything and they plug themselves into debt. When you fix it, they'll go again. Okay. So if you're going to fix it, then you should do it at the same time that you are making changes to the management. Okay. So that fresh ideas and then structural things. So you have a clean slate and the growth can be experienced. Okay. And then the shareholders' value will begin to shine and increase. Yes.
Okay. This is the business edition of PM Express. My name is Philip Nanfuri and my guest Charles Mensah, financial consultant and CEO of Trust Consult Limited. We're taking a quick break. We'll be right back. Right. Thanks for your company and welcome back. So we'll be looking at PBC's financials, and Charles has been helping us to chart a way out of PBC's financials, or PBC's financial quagmire. The debt they took over the years is one of their key problems, but alongside that, management also has a role to play. So if there's a change supposed to be effected on PBC, it should come from both angles. Whilst we work on the debt issue or the financials, we work on the structure of the company, the management. He also mentioned that the businesses in which they've extended themselves, the haulage business, the hospitality, they need to relook at it. They can give it to somebody else to manage for them who can do it better and bring in the revenue or the funds they require. Sticking to what you do in business has its ups and downs. We are well aware of the Kodak story, failure to innovate. But sometimes in innovating or changing your business strategy, you need to be cognizant of what happens within your surroundings. We'll delve into the broader economy and how that will impact not only PBC's business, but businesses in general. But I want to find out from Charles if some of these stories we hear from the stock market act as a barrier to getting companies to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. You see, putting your house in order, it's a very sure way for growth in your business profitability. when you go to, or when you go in the stock market, there's a headmaster somewhere tracking your financials, tracking your corporate governance, and even tracking your management and the returns, because the share price reflects the performance of the business. And to have a reflection, you have to make sure that the numbers are being channeled and channeled right. So companies, anytime you take a decision that you're going to a stock market, it needs to mean that you are ready. So, and therefore, anytime you want to raise additional money, because your house is in order, you don't have to do too many communication. You don't have to talk. Just show a profitability in the past and a dividend policy in the past. And therefore, if I need additional equity from potential investors or even from existing investors, they will invest without asking questions because I've been cleaned over the years and it's there. So that's where the stock market becomes very good. Now, with this big stick approach that the stock market have done, it's also sent a signal that if I'm listed and I don't put my house in order and I try to pussyfoot, instead of taking a certain decision, I suspend it and things like that, I will be suspended, and that can also affect the fortunes of the business. So it sends a very good signal to all and sundry. If this company was not listed, it would have been rested within a few individuals within the board or within a thing. The next minute, tomorrow the business is gone. But this is giving a certain signal. We all have read it, we all have seen where they borrowed, we all have seen where the money went, and we are now making some recommendation as to what can be done. It's going to increase the shareholders' value and to help everybody. Fortunately, 75% shares for the two sides is very good, but I would recommend that the SNIT and the government itself should see restructure it and at the point also offload some of their shares so that we can have the second tier, because cocoa will remain the bane of the country. So investing in the cocoa sector in itself is a good thing. I think it's the other thing that came into that's what created the problem. So it's good to take all those challenges away and then let the cocoa sector grow and grow well, and it will benefit shareholders.
So opening up shares for, particularly, for example, like the private pension funds, to have a taste of it. Just a quick one. Do you agree with...
but it won't be now. You have to restructure first before you can attract them.
Okay, so restructuring, yes. Then you open it up for new investors, yes, to come in. Just, I want to pick your point before we move into the broader corporate structure in the country. Do you agree with some people who would say that having SNIT and Government of Ghana through Ministry of Finance is having Government of Ghana as the majority shareholder? Because SNIT in itself controlled by Ministry of Finance in a way, Ministry of Finance controlled by Ministry of Finance. So you have these two large shareholders being under government. Would you agree with something like that? That there's some interference in there?
So far as I'm concerned, because it's a listed company, I haven't seen interference, unless maybe they are behind the scenes interference that it's not open to the public. But I haven't quite seen the so-called interference. Okay. But yes, if government controls, government controls. If government appoints the board, government appoints the board. But that would have been spelled out at the market grows to state clearly that whoever is the majority shareholder appoint the board chair, whoever it's so appoint the MD. Okay. Every director would have a tenure of 3 years, renewable once. All these rules would have been spelled out. And then that would grow from there from time to time. So yes, you can have government majority in there, but when they try to interfere behind the scenes, that is not made public. It creates a problem. So it could be a perception, and that's why I was suggesting that after restructuring, government itself should offload. Okay. Offload maybe another 35% out, so that could be picked up by the second tier and the third tier companies. Okay. They can pick these because it's listed on the stock market, so transparency and things like that. Okay. Because there's a growth in that. There's a serious growth in the cocoa sector, potential. growth in that. And there's a yearly, you all know it, there's a yearly growth. You'd see that. So it's not an industry that is dying.
Okay.
It's an industry that is growing. And more so when it is that the government, I think through His Excellency the President, had mentioned that we would add value to the cocoa in a certain period. So that would be the point where PBC itself will prepare itself towards that challenge, so that we will not be exporting beans, but we'll be exporting cocoa powder.
Yeah.
So they will have an edge over the other people. The real thing that is bringing them down, like I said, is the haulage and other things. Yeah. Because there's a gross profit. There's a gross profit. So in itself, we just have to increase the margin or the gross profit, because do more volumes. The other costs are direct to it. So the more volumes you do, the more, the bigger the gross profit that you get. Now if the gross profit is bigger, then you can take care of other expenses.
Okay.
But in this industry, I think the debt to equity ratio shouldn't be, maximum is 50-50. But now, when I looked at it, it's about 90-10.
Wow.
So 90% of the company structure is debt.
Debt. It's only 10% being
It's only 10% be equity. And there's no way you can survive. More especially when you have private sector already in it. Because private sectors have, I'm saying this private sector because this 75% is government, either way you look at it. So the private sectors are playing the game, they are part of it. They pull equity together, they pull friends together. The loan aspect will not be too much, because else you'll be working for the debt holders. And at the point now, you can't even service it. And that can create a bit of a problem.
Okay. The good one there. On the broader corporate structure, even beyond PBC, the banking sector exposed us to corporate governance as a reason for their failures. So that governance, poor governance structure, led to a multiplicity of issues, poor financials, etc. But that's banking. PBC's industry is the cocoa. We have manufacturing companies, a lot of diverse companies, pharmaceutical companies on the stock exchange. Charles, when you're looking at all these companies and with your worldview of corporate failures, would you pin it down to A, management, B, their sector-specific problems, or C, macroeconomic problems, or D, or the above?
I think let's take one after the other.
Okay.
You see, management's role basically is to chart the right course. The economy could have challenges. I mean, I haven't seen any economy that has grown throughout without any challenge. But the management's role is to predict the challenge that is going to come and what to do with it. So it boils down to the management, because each time there's a challenge, it's the management that will chart a course so that we can stay out of those games. Look at it. The banking sector suffered something in the past, and we all can attest to that. But there were banks who survived. What happened? They were in the banking business, but the management of those banks did what is right. They saw it. When the time came that everybody was buying treasury bills, some banks realized that treasury bill, there will be a challenge. So the day the treasury bill rates are going down, they had excess cash. So the only way to do is to lend to people. Now, in lending to people to capture, to crawl in profit, they were lending to people without going through the rigmarole of collateral security, analysis of the projections. And that was their failure. Those who were smart then started ensuring that they have good credit management system. They were training their people. If you know how to grant a loan, you should know how to do repayment. So the staff were sharp up to it. Other people, they were not. That's why they suffered. It's there. And then also, some people also came all the way from microfinance. In no time, they became savings and loans. And then within 2 years, they became a universal bank.
Banks, yeah.
My brother, there's no way that you can bring microfinance, savings and loans experience
to banking,
to mainstream. No, it won't work like that. There are rules, there are systems, there are credit committees, there's evaluation, there's a risk analysis. So all those activity would help a big bank. So those who suffered are those, you watch, when you follow, I spoke at a lecture somewhere, that if you look at it carefully, those who suffered are those who started from microfinance, became savings and loans, and then move on to that. That's where those who suffered. But those hardcore banking with the right people, with the right structure. Because if you understand banking, there's no way you're going to start banking from day one and then you are highly leveraged. How would you grant a loan to people? You yourself, you are borrowing. And you're going to thrive on people's granting loans to people. Now, if you're going to service the loan that you've borrowed, and how much interest are you going to charge people for you to be able to service the debt? So if somebody calls you as a manager or as a director to come and serve on the board or management, you say the capital structure is not good. We need to have more equity in it. If they don't have enough equity, I'm not coming. These are the signals that we have to begin to put across. Okay. Now, if it doesn't happen like that, we'll have another 5 years, 10 years at play. And it also happened to other sectors also. You see, once people are bringing the returns, once accounts are being audited and submitted to shareholders through the board, the shareholders shouldn't look at it as we have fulfilled a requirement, we have done our audited accounts. Analyze it. Let them do the infographics that you try to show. Show it, see the trend. Is it going up? Is it coming down? Look at the difference. If the profit margin, the difference between 10 and 8, we all know is 2. So maybe 20%. So at each point in time, you know 20%. Sometimes, if you don't watch carefully, you look at the volumes, but the rate is going down. You know, reasons have been adduced to it that the reason why the rate is going down, we have to sacrifice some percentage. And that's why we are not doing 20%, but we're doing 18%. If that's not forthcoming, and you're going to thrive on the huge figures that were published, but when you express it, it's about 4%. Next year is 3%. In 3 years' time, you won't have any business. And that's what shareholders, whether it's listed on the stock market or private, you should be keeping an eye on. The second and the most last one that I was, cash is king. So you must always look at the balance sheet and see how much of the company's money is locked up in cash. If you have a lot locked up in cash, then it's good. But if you don't have cash, but you have it in either stocks or debtors, the chances are that the debtors will tend to buy debt. The chances are that the stock would have expired. So you lose money, these two. But cash is cash. You can see it, you can feel it, you make more money.
Okay, so Charles is telling us that on a broader level, management of an institution, and he's used the banking sector experience to tell us that management is very key. He adds that cash, physical cash, what you can see, what you can feel, is very important in the business. When you tie up your funds in other things, getting it liquidated into your hand for operations becomes a problem. So as a company, look at your balance sheet properly. Make sure that your cash flow or your businesses are generating enough cash flow to sustain activities. This is the business edition of PM Express. We're taking a quick break. We'll be right back. Right. Thanks for staying with us. My guest again, Charles Mensah, financial consultant and CEO of Trust Consult Limited. My name is Philip Nanfuri. We've looked at PBC in depth. We've gone into their structure, what their problem is, and the way out. We broadened it to look at the financial sector or the corporate structure in the country. And Charles used the financial sector as an example of why management is key. I asked him the question whether it depends on management, whether there's specific industry, or whether the macroeconomy. And he says, as a manager, your job is to predict and understand what is going to happen in the next few months, few years, and push your company through, chart a way around it. Because these things will always happen in an economy. There are times where we have peaks and we have troughs. I'm sure you've heard that the global economy might be entering a recession sometime soon. We saw that Germany, big country, its GDP figures have contracted for a second quarter. We've seen these things happening in the global level, but you will see that these countries will come up again and continue business. So it can be done in the corporate world. Things will happen, but we must find ways around it, and that's the important note Charles is telling managers to have. It's your job to chart a way around it. We are winding down on a conversation, and we want to just find out what advice Charles has for corporates. He told you, managers, have your wits about you. Cash is king, like he said. What other things can Charles tell us? We are in the month of August. We have a few months into the year ends, and we're all expectant. Everybody wants to have a good business year. What advice can Charles give us on strategy for companies, on keeping their financials, keeping their books. Not only big companies, the MSMEs also. You guys matter. How can we ensure that we are doing the right thing? Charles, strategy, financial performance, corporate structure, organization, culture is one thing that we also talk about. What can corporates do to ensure that they don't enter a space? You've mentioned management to have their wits about them. You mentioned cash. What again can you tell us so that we don't have issues like this, PBC and other ones, not only PBC, but we've seen a number of corporate failures. What can we do to ensure that businesses chart a right path?
I think they should have their KPIs ready, the key performance indicators. And these days, people have alert systems, so that we have built a system that the sales for a particular week should be X amount. Debtors should be X. Cash bank is this. The number of days we give credit should be this. All those indicators are there. Now, anytime we are exceeding, they get an alert. People are building systems like that. They get an alert. So that at the management meeting, within or executive manager meeting, those alerts are brought to bear. And then the manager's work will be, what can you do to avert that red light that we had so that we can go into the green light? Sometimes people don't keep an eye on those alertness. So as management, break your system down into ordinary things that people even on the shop floor understands what they are doing. Now, if you break it down such a way, at a point in time, they can predict, they themselves know that with this performance, there's no way we'll go for overdraft. We'll go for overtime. We'll work for free because the machine itself had been down for 3 weeks. It just came back stream. We have to do more volumes so that we can achieve the month target. The workers will not come and tell you that they want an overtime or they want a bonus because they all saw it. And the machine is down. And when the machine is down, there's some manufacturers that we help build the systems, you will see on the notice board in the factory floor, you see those indicators are there. Safety, everything the indicators are, so people are seeing visibly that it's growing or it's not growing. But when you don't bring these information right to the doorstep of the ordinary staff, and a decision is taken, which is typical of us, want to do cost cutting instead of cost reduction, want to do cost cutting exercise, and then an announcement, you send a panic. So, the way things, the economy is not doing well, we are going to lay staff off. First and foremost, this will come in the blue. You haven't prepared them. So even those who will stay after the exercise, to bring them back into the groove, to make sure that it won't happen. So it is important that such announcement is not done. Maybe cost reduction exercise instead of cost cutting. What is it? It is doing things without affecting the quality of life of people, without affecting the quality of service that you are providing. So you have a meeting with the people. We have this challenge. How do we come out? They themselves can tell you that we need to have a system where we have a schedule of production. We have a schedule because we are producing maybe 10 hours instead of 8 hours. And therefore, Group A should do this, Group B should do that. That is what would propel us forward. It will not come at a cost because they know that we have an objective to achieve. But when this is not happening, and you go and throw in that we are doing cost cutting exercise, we know the country is rough. And the country is rough, in no time, the board members are having 4 meetings in a month. Everybody sees that they are being paid board allowance. It's sending the wrong signals. I recommended to some boards that we can have some board meetings via WhatsApp groups. And what is the once it's protected, we can have it a decision, quick decision, so we don't have, we'll miss the sitting allowance. But in itself, we are working. It will help the company. That's how these days people move. Instead of you going to the office and having 4 meetings, when we know we have a crisis and it's financial, unless we are sacrificing that we are sitting 4 times in a month to solve the problem, we are not taking allowance. When that signal goes out to people, they are also prepared to work with you. And that's what should happen in corporate Ghana these days, especially when we have a crisis situation. Sure. Let it be known to the employees. He knows that the company is for certain shareholders. They know that the company has directors. They know that they have management. They are not shying away from them. What they want to hear is where the company is going, because they want a sustainable salary. And therefore, give them the story, whether it's good or bad. Don't only go there and announce the bad story and tell them the decisions that if we allow this culture, this value system to permeate across corporate Ghana, you will see a total change of businesses as you cross along.
So that's it. Apart from good management and other things, communication, the culture, and in the root of this is ethics, or having a right moral compass in an institution. And that, Charles argues, if it's taken across board in corporate Ghana, we'll see a massive change. If there's a problem in institutions, let management come forward and tell us. Let them not keep quiet. Let them attend meetings in fancy places. I'm sure you know these things happen in your companies. You hear they've gone on a retreat somewhere, people are enjoying. The company's in a crisis, but somebody has a new car. Somebody has a new office. Somebody has a new this. It happens all the time. Charles is asking that we take a look at this and ensure that it's done properly. I want to say a big thank you to Charles Mensah, financial consultant and CEO of Trust Consult Limited. My name is Philip Nanfuri, and this has been the business edition of PM Express. Do have a good night.